Hello and welcome to Counterpressed on The Ringer and Spotify. I'm back in the Zurich HQ with Jessy Parker Humphreys. On today's show, we look ahead to the quarterfinals. It is the last 8. This is where the drama really begins. 8 teams left and only 4 will progress to the semi-finals. Very dramatic.
That was so X Factor of
so
you.
X-Factor. Rachel at a daydream. Jessy, you're in week 2 and a bit here.
I don't know what day it is anymore. I don't know. I feel like I could have been in Zurich for a year or 2 days, and I don't really know.
You've lived many lives.
I've lived many lives. I'm in phase 3. Phase 3 of my life in Zurich. So
You're in phase 3 of your life in Zurich. We're gearing up for a very exciting run of games. We've got Norway, Italy tonight, which is in Geneva, followed by Sweden, England here in Zurich on the Thursday. Then Switzerland, Spain on the Friday, which is obviously going to be huge. Home nation taking on the world champions. And then it all finishes with, for me, the most blockbuster quarterfinal tie to wrap it all up, which is France, Germany. Game you're most excited for, Jessy?
I mean, I think obviously England. But yeah, I agree sort of from if I take my England hat off, France, Germany is, I think, the one on paper that feels like 2 really blockbuster teams. Although definitely the vibe yesterday at England camp was very much like, we will think Sweden are really underrated, wasn't it? So maybe we should be thinking of England, Sweden as blockbuster as well.
They were definitely trying to throw on the praise and not look
Leo's being very polite. They've been trying their best to really play down everything over there.
Yeah, well, obviously we'll get into the England-Sweden preview specifically. But I feel like, Jessy, maybe we haven't done enough of a vibe check with you quickly about how you found the overall vibes in Zurich in terms of tournament vibes. We are on a huge hunt for the mascot, which is sold out.
Oh my God, Madly.
The St. Bernard,
Cute
hybrid.
doggy, cute puppy. We saw her in the FIFA museum.
Yeah.
But she was behind glass. And we've not found her yet, have we? We've got some tips.
We've had some tip-offs of where she might be in various supermarkets.
There are some Madly dealers floating around the English press pack, and we've been sniffing them out. So
yeah, we've got a few leads, but the Madly mascot has been a big, I guess, exciting
I feel like this
element.
happens every tournament. There's this mascot that everyone's obsessed with and you can never find it. It happened to me in 2019 when this small girl bought the last Etty in front of me. And obviously I got to meet Etty yesterday. So
you didn't get an Etty in France? Wow.
No. And it's sad because my brother was born during France 98 and my dad as a present got me the original France 98 bird, who is, I believe the law is that he's Etty's granddad.
Yeah.
Which I don't really know if that works age-wise, but I don't know what bird lifetimes are different to ours.
Yeah, so true. They don't live that long, actually.
So, yeah. So, but I just feel like every year. But then we just had such a shit one that I didn't care because we just had those weird blobby people.
Yeah, I don't think did they sell them? Probably.
I didn't see them, but I wasn't interested.
Didn't pay much time. Tazuni sold well in Australia.
Tazuni was, but Tazuni was easy
the
to
non-binary
find.
penguin.
Tazuni, I love them. I did manage to get a Tazuni in Australia.
Yeah, I got Tazuni as well.
But Madly, she is an elusive lady.
Yeah, but we will keep you updated because we're very much hoping we're going to get one.
Or 5.
Or 5. And we are hopefully maybe going to go to the fan park tonight to watch that.
To watch Norway, Italy.
And that'll be my first taste of the fan park. So I'm excited because I think there's been moments where I felt tournament vibes and moments where I haven't. So
yeah, Zurich is like it's not a big city. It's quite small, I think, compared to London. But definitely, I personally haven't had that same. I haven't had a sense of there's a big tournament on. It's everywhere. I think I'm excited to be here for Switzerland, Spain. If I am here, I will be here for Switzerland, Spain. I won't be getting sent home with England.
No, we've got to manifest, guys. Manifest that England go through so that Jessy can.
But I will still be here because I'd be going home on Saturday.
Enjoying
that's fine.
The vibes, the Euros vibes. Okay, let's get into it then. Let's preview the quarterfinals next. This episode is presented by Pepsi Max. Pepsi Max has always supported both women's and men's football. So to help make sure the next 50 years are as legendary as the last, they've made an inspiring film called Refresh the Game.
featuring current stars like Lauren James and Leah Williamson, alongside legends like Pele, Refresh the Game celebrates the unapologetic challenger spirit and talent of women's football. Watch it now on Pepsi Max channels. Pepsi Max, proud sponsors of the UEFA Women's Euro this summer.
So I want to start with Norway, Italy, because this is probably in terms of the worst teams in the last 8. No offence to these two sides.
No, I think Switzerland are the worst team.
Okay, I'm more, but they've got more vibes than maybe these two. I do love the Italian vibes, but being the home nation, I think
those
boosts
suits
them.
are they not vibey enough for you?
The suits are incredible and they look amazing, but I think the home nation vibes give them more. But Norway, going into this, in our preview episodes, and for most people that have been following Norway in major tournaments over the last few years, so much of the narrative was they have bombed at consecutive major tournaments. They've got a lot of individually talented players, but there's a slightly weird vibe within the squad. They tend to turn on their head coach. Will they be able to get out of quite an easy group? Group A was the easiest group on paper. They end up being pretty jammy, topping the group despite not looking great in any of their games, and they find themselves, much like the narrative around England, with also a really nice route towards going quite deep in this tournament. And they've got a quarter-final tie against Italy, who have scored the fewest goals of any of the last 8 sides. Very Italian. They don't create loads, but I do enjoy watching them, and they were part of one of Counterpress favourite games of the tournament, which was Portugal-Italy, which the last 20 minutes were incredible. So it's a very interesting tie. I actually think if I'm the Italians, I feel like we've got a good chance of getting through.
Yeah, I feel kind of hot on Italy in this one, and then I feel like everyone else is picking Norway, and am I genius, or am I just like really barking up the wrong tree on this? I found Norway just quite a tough watch, and Italy, even though it's not like they've had these like massive wins, as you say, I feel like in all of their games they've put up a good showing, and I think that Portugal game felt quite dramatic, but I feel like everything that's happened with Portugal meant that there was like so much more surrounding that game than just Italy-Portugal, which felt like it was like pushing Portugal further. And then in the Spain game, I know obviously Spain rotated, but I thought Italy for around 60 minutes were by far the better side, and they could easily have scored sort of 2 or 3 in that game. So yeah, I think for me, I just feel like Italy are more of a team. The issue, I think, well, the reason why I guess it's easy to look at Norway is you just feel like, even though regularly these players do seem to flatter to deceive in a Norway shirt, you only need one of them to show up, and they are like players who can just totally change a game. I'm really intrigued to see if Galpset plays, because obviously she sort of starred in their very chaotic win over Iceland that no one was watching because everyone was watching the Switzerland game instead. But that was the change that Granger made at half-time against Finland, and their midfield was getting overrun so much, and she moved right and inside and brought Galpset on, and Galpset was really impressive, and it just felt like it gave them a little bit more solidity. Although then they were quite chaotic against Iceland. So I just can't be moved by Norway, whereas I am quite moved by Italy.
I can't be moved by Norway at all, and I just really don't like the vibes that they have. Every single game I've watched them, it looks like a team of individuals playing for themselves, definitely not listening to their coach.
Or I don't know if they're listening to their coach, but like the out of possession stuff is like so stinky. Yeah, which I don't know whose fault that is.
Exactly.
But it's someone's fault.
It may be the directive that's poor, or it may be that they're doing their own thing, or it could be both. But I do get a sense that the senior players are leading that, not necessarily the head coach. And there's understandably enough individual talent there to win games and swing games, which they've shown. They've had a lot of luck as well, I think, along the way. And maybe just getting through to a quarter-final is what they needed to get over the hump of 2022 and 2023. But I just feel like I agree with you in that the togetherness of Italy, even though they haven't created loads and they haven't scored a ton of goals, I think they play well in games and they're actually fairly good at taking their chances, and I think they'll feel confident with that.
For me, Norway played 3 games against 3 fairly weak opponents and probably looked like the better team in about 45 minutes, 60 minutes total across 270. Italy, I feel like, played... Belgium and Portugal, you'd say, maybe similar level, maybe a bit better than the teams Norway played, and then they played a really good opponent in Spain. And I just think for a far higher percentage of the group stage, they looked like the better team. So I think for me, that's why I'm like, I just kind of feel like I prefer Italy. But they are 2 quite evenly matched teams ultimately, and you have to say sort of on the individuals basis, on the on paper basis, you would give Norway the edge. But football isn't paid up.
That's 2.5 weeks of major tournament for you. Your brain just melted.
Football isn't played on paper, Flo.
Football is not played on paper. Football, and we could be seeing our first penalty shootouts this week as well, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, the 9 p.m. kickoff fiasco is a real trend of the tournament because...
Firstly, nothing in Zurich is open, or like only strange places in Zurich are open after 11 o'clock.
Jessy knows that from experience. And as a journalist, it's much harder to get back from games. And as a player, Chloe Kelly was telling us yesterday that it means she's taking 2-hour naps before a late kickoff.
Yeah, and Leah was talking about how she had drug testing afterwards, and she basically didn't get back until 2 a.m. because everything's taking so long. So, and yeah, if we now go to extra time and penalties, games won't be finishing till midnight. Post-match won't be finishing till 1. So it is it's quite a chunky time. I might be crossing my fingers for 90 minutes games.
Yeah, strap yourself in. I think Leah also said yesterday that their job is to just get it done within the 90 and not, have to worry about penalties next time and everything. So let's move on to the next quarterfinal, which of course is England facing Sweden in Zurich. We'll be there. A massive quarterfinal for England, an opponent they'd know very well. Understandably, lots of the build-up has been about the Bramall Lane semi-final, England's 4-0 win, the Alessia Russo back heel, that performance which... in counter-press law, I don't think we'd actually started the podcast, but famously...
oh my God, that's so weird that we didn't have the podcast.
Famously, in the stands, when Russo scored that back heel, my whole brain chemistry reset, and I sort of had a slight meltdown like a kind of AI robot. I kind of reformatted in the Bramall Lane stands. And it was a delirious night. It was an incredible night.
It was because we had the hot tub.
It's because we had the hot tub at Airbnb and nothing was the same again.
Nothing ever was better. Everything changed when we had that hot tub.
And I had to
That's the best thing I've ever done.
I had to drive back from Sheffield about 7 a.m. the next day. It was it was a tough one. But it was an amazing moment for England, and obviously they got through to the final and then they ended up winning at Wembley. But there was a lot of questions in the press conference yesterday about that game. But I don't know how you feel, Jessy, but I feel like that game for me doesn't necessarily mean that much. Not because either side is massively different. Obviously, England has changed a little bit since then with retirements, players that aren't in this squad. Sweden less so. But it's more that England is a home nation, England with that result. I don't think we're going to see a result like that on Thursday where England blast away Sweden and win 4-0. And so much has changed in that time, in that England have played Sweden twice in Euro qualifying, 2 tight games, a 1-0, a 0-0, which feels much more maybe on par of where these sides are. I think England have done well in this tournament in that they've taken their chances and had 2 really big scorelines, which will make them feel really confident. In both those games against Sweden in the qualifiers, I think there were moments where they looked good, but it wasn't great to watch. It wasn't the sort of, I think, slightly more exciting attacking football we're seeing in this tournament anyway. And Sweden, you always kind of know what you're going to get. There was a question in the press conference yesterday about set pieces and in-swinging corners, and that is very typical Sweden. But the added element this tournament, which everyone is talking about, is Stina Blackstenius. Because of what she did in the Champions League, because of what everyone knows she can do in the WSL, the question is England going to get Blackstenius?
I can't spend my life being Blackstenius. Okay, let me think about all of these things. I think the first thing is, I was talking to some Swedish journalists yesterday, and they were saying that the thing about sort of Euro 2022 and the 4-0 is that they'd felt like sort of leading into that Sweden hadn't really been playing that well and had sort of lucked out by getting that far. So I think they sort of feel like this is a much better Sweden team than the one that was there. And I guess we did kind of see it in those qualifying games, which were also sort of how England ended up in this group of death, because they actually had the opportunity to top the group that night in Sweden because France had this like shock loss to Ireland. But they were obviously so panicked about having to go through the playoff system that they just like kept it tight. And honestly, that game at Wembley as well was like one of the most boring things I've ever sat through. So I do think it will be tight. I think in terms of Stina, it'll be interesting. Obviously, Williamson knows her very well, but she said yesterday it's very different to play someone in training and then go and play them in a match. I personally, and this is like genuinely not just biased to me, but like I think Kanneryd is the one I feel more worried about, because I know she becomes like a bit of a figure of fun because she often like misses a lot of chances, but the numbers she's putting up in this tournament are like pretty insane, and we saw England really struggle with good ball carriers in the France game. It'll be interesting to see whether Carter, who again is someone who'll know Kanneryd well, if she moves back to left back and Greenwood stays at centre back. But then I think when you've got Stina's runs, and Wiegmann's spoken a lot about using Carter at centre back because of central runs, whether she'll want to go with it. My biggest fear is we're going to see a Leah Williamson offside hand against Stina, and she won't be offside.
So one thing, because I feel like, apologies, I did throw about 8 questions at you at once.
It's okay.
In that previous section.
I think I pulled them apart.
No. I should have split it up as, does the 4-0 mean anything? Are England going to get Baxter? But we covered those bases. But I was looking at the team that started in that 0-0 in Gothenburg, which was not a very enjoyable game. And you had Carter starting at left back then, and she was absolutely bombing up the pitch, and there were moments where Sweden tried to play really direct to try and get in behind England as quickly as possible. It didn't quite work because the distribution wasn't brilliant. They couldn't really find the players they wanted to, but we also know that England, we haven't seen it yet massively in this tournament, maybe a little bit against France, but we haven't yet seen those real spooky England transition moments. And against Stina Blackstenius, those can be the times where you really get done. And I think we saw that against Germany for her goal, where I think AKB maybe could have done a little bit better. But that's a little bit spooky, I think, for England to think about, okay, if we are pushing aggressively in a knockout game and our fullbacks are going high. I mean, Greenwood never goes that high when she plays at left back, but certainly Lucy Bronze is obviously that's her style. She's very aggressive in the way she plays. Turnovers could get quite nervy, but I do think England have certainly looked better at controlling the midfield in the last 2 games, and that's going to be critical as well about how they manage those situations.
Yeah, but I think the other thing I would say is I think England can be a very good attacking transition team, and obviously the Sweden-Germany game ended up with a very lopsided scoreline, but the first 20 minutes or so, Germany looked really, really threatening when they were turning over the ball and transitioning. So I do think this feels like, maybe it's a case for both teams of the winner's going to be who can control that kind of transition threat the most, who can not turn over the ball in dangerous areas, because Sweden looked just as susceptible to it as Germany did. Sweden looked just as susceptible to it as Germany did in that match. And equally, I think an Eriksson-Bjorn centre-back pairing doesn't feel super speedy. Now, Russo isn't going to make the same kind of runs in behind that Stina does, but Ella Toon might make them from a little bit deeper. And I think then the other thing that we've spoken about a little bit in the days leading up to this game is the age profile of the Sweden squad. This is a very old squad. I believe they are like oldest average age in the tournament. There are a lot of players who are in their 30s. So it's a very experienced team, but I think it will also be interesting to see, if this game, as this game gets into the latter stages, if this game were to go to extra time, I do feel like England would have an edge there just by virtue of having more legs.
I will say 2 things that we haven't necessarily seen in these matchups before, because she wasn't fit for that 0-0 Not sure about the 1-1 actually, and she certainly wasn't playing in 2022. Lauren James, LJ cheat code.
LJ cheat code.
And also Sweden's young, talented, exciting Hammarby crew who could be their roll of the dice jokers in the pack. And I do think when you look at England's squad, there is depth on the bench there that we've seen in moments, especially in the Wales game. I think that the subs kind of had a really big impact on just sort of really killing the game off even more so.
Well, we obviously had Chloe Kelly up yesterday for media, and, you know, all of the conversation was about these finishers. And, you know, I think it's really interesting that obviously the way Wiegman's doing subs has changed from Euro 2022, but clearly the focus in camp is, you know, these players who aren't starting, know they're not starting and have like got this really big bond, and then they've got their little clicky celebration.
The whole brand of just being a sub.
And no one knows the difference between the word click and the word clique, and it's so annoying. But for me, I think when you look at those players, and maybe this is just a virtue of we know the England team better, we've been around them more, but they feel like such a motivated and experienced group that then when you look at sort of the players that maybe Sweden could bring on, like, for example, I like Ellen Vangerheim, but I'm like, do I feel like she can really have a strong impact in the same way I feel like someone like Chloe Kelly could, or Beth Mead could?
Well, she's got fewer tournament experience in her.
It's just a very different thing, isn't it? Or it's like, or Lena Herzig could come on, and, you know, obviously she scored against Germany, but again, I just feel like it does feel to me like England have a slightly different... England's squad depth feels more experienced, even if Sweden's actual sort of starting 11 is very experienced. And what's interesting about this game and kind of fun is Sweden and England have the best record of reaching semi-finals. So they're like the only European teams to have reached semi-finals, I think, in the last 4 tournaments. And that's going to go for someone. So I think, you know, in terms of tournament football, across actually the 8 quarterfinals, finalists, these 2 teams are the best equipped to play the game, and I think that's going to be a really like interesting element.
Yeah, definitely. And Sweden fans come out in force. And
those slow hooligans, they be slowly hooliganing.
The soft hooligans.
Oh no, why do I keep them called slow hooligans?
I like it. I feel like, I mean, yeah, I'm into it. They're great, big vibes. So England fans, I know there's tons of people looking for tickets. Please make some noise, because they got some good chants. They're also doing the Sina Blackstenius Arsenal chant now. And when I was travelling back from the Sweden-Germany game, there were loads of Germany fans who were humming it because it was stuck in their head, and they were sort of hating themselves for it, much like any Chelsea fan might hate themselves. Nah, they were humming it.
I've sung that song before when she played Man City.
Okay, all right, let's take a break there and let's preview the other 2 quarterfinals after this.
This episode is presented by Pepsi Max. In the last 50 years, the beautiful game has had more than its share of iconic moments. And Pepsi has been at the centre of loads of them with their iconic films. Now, Pepsi Max are doubling down on their support of the women's game in a massive way. Not only are they sponsoring the Women's Euro in 2025, they're also refreshing the game with their star-studded new campaign. It follows today's stars, Lauren James, Leah Williamson, Alexia Putellas, Caroline Graham-Hansen and Farah Jeffrey on a journey through time as they refresh some of Pepsi's most iconic footballing moments. From Pele's debut in the 1970s to Ronaldinho's beachside brilliance. This isn't just nostalgia, it's a statement. With record viewership, women's football is the fastest growing sport on the planet, and Pepsi Max is right there cheering on that growth. Watch the legends meet now on Pepsi Max channels. Pepsi Max, proud sponsors of the UEFA Women's Euro this summer.
So our 3rd quarterfinal, which is Friday night in Bern. It's so hard to keep up
Bern,
with.
baby, Bern.
Because Bern and Basel are a bit confusing. But in Bern, we have Spain, Switzerland, the hosts, taking on the world champions.
Ooh.
It's going to be tough. They're going to have to channel every single person in Switzerland to try and energise them and pull off one of the most sensational upsets in women's football history. It's 10 times bigger than Arsenal beating Barcelona in the Champions League. It is crazy.
Why do we have to bring that up?
Sorry, just have to knock you on the head again with it. It would be huge. But Jessy, I want to start with Spain because just because of the way the games have fallen and our podcast schedule, we talked about the really fun game against Belgium a lot when we had Moyo and Kate on, and we really talked about how it just feels like Alexia is really back, and that's exciting. But you've been watching Spain, obviously, out here in Switzerland. What have you made of their tournament so far?
Yeah, I think they've obviously been really impressive going forward. They definitely have an error or 7 in the back line.
Who doesn't, though? This whole tournament.
I think Spain, I feel like Spain have been worse for it than, say, England or Sweden or teams like that. So I agree. I think, all of the defences have not covered themselves in glory at some point. But for Spain, I do think it's a little bit concerning. I think the only question mark I have is, even though they have those moments and they've really struggled to keep clean sheets consistently, even in the lead up to this tournament, is it feels like that when they need to just put their foot down and go harder at the opponent, they can, and they find something else and they score. And some of that defensive stuff, I don't think it is just this. I do think it's a bit of a tactical problem as well. But I think some of it is a little bit just complacency. But yeah, I think Alexia's looked fantastic. And I'm really happy for her, because I think obviously what happened on the eve of Euro 2022 was so gutting and so gutting for Spain as well. And obviously she was there for the World Cup, but, she wasn't really part of that team. So it felt like she sort of missed these 2 tournaments just when she's reaching her kind of peak years. So I think to come here and play the way she's playing, she's just such a joy to watch. Like, when Alexia's playing well, like you can't help but smile, because the stuff she sees, the stuff she can do on a pitch is amazing. And I think, the other thing that's pretty felt good for Spain is that they obviously rotated a little bit for that Italy game, and it feels like, players who've been able to come in and out. Obviously Vicky Lopez sort of got a shout at the start of the tournament because Aitana was recovering from tonsillitis.
Viral meningitis.
Meningitis, that's it. So I think that feels like it's given them kind of some depth, some options. Esther's obviously been in fantastic form. Yeah, they look really good. I find it really hard to look past them, as much as I'd love for Switzerland to do something extraordinary. I just think I think there are teams here who can stop Spain, but I think they need to be of a higher quality than Switzerland are.
Yeah, and Spain just have so many players who are playing so well at the moment. Patri's had a really good tournament. We haven't necessarily even seen that much of what Aitana can do yet, because she has been in and out of the team because of their illness, coming on in kind of little bits of minutes. But Lopez, like you say, Esther Gonzalez has looked brilliant. And I think that is the scary thing, is now they've got this clinical striker who...
Which is something I didn't think I'd be saying about Esther, but sure.
Well, she's
in
just in
form.
phenomenal form. And I think that adds this even more dangerous element to them, which is slightly terrifying, because they've got so many goal scorers, so many ways that they can punish you across the pitch. And that is what makes it so hard for Switzerland, because if anyone's playing Spain, and I was talking about this with Adrian Durham in the England press conference yesterday, is so many things have to go right for you. You have to be extremely disciplined defensively. You have to have a little bit of luck. You have to take your chances, and you have to hope that they have a poor game in other areas. That is 4 insane things that have to go your way. And I think England had that a little bit in 2022, where both those goals are amazing finishes. Rachel Daly was getting cooked. Spain probably could have been 2-3-0 up. And England win that game. And, some of that is that home nation momentum. And that felt like a moment where everything changed for England in that tournament. England's Nations League performance, I think, at Wembley, which doesn't count for much, but I think it had elements of that, where Spain were rushed, taking shots from outside the box, and that, I think that is how you play Spain a little bit, is you force them to just take these shots from the edge of the box and hope that Claudia Pina, Alexia, Aitana, Patri, like one of those doesn't drop for them. And England, took that slightly lucky Jess Park chance, but it's so hard to beat them because you have to have all those things go right. And I don't know if Switzerland can deliver something like that, because they've had elements of sometimes luck in their games. I mean, think about that awful penalty they gave away, and it looked like their tournament was over, and they managed to flip the game. Do they have something like that in them to deliver, or do we think this is probably where their tournament ends?
I really want to be able to be like, ooh, positive, but I just can't look past Spain. I just don't think that they will play below the level required. And as much as I'm really happy Switzerland have made it to the knockout stages, I feel like it's been a lot more to do with being in a weak group, home nation, vibes, hope, excitement, than it has, say, feeling like I'm watching a team that's really well organised or something like that, which you could look at and say, yeah, I think they can beat Spain because I think they do have a really good out-of-possession game. Like, I don't really feel like that. And I think even in the games I've watched Switzerland, like, they are, this is no shade. Reaching this point of the tournament is amazing and will be exactly what they wanted. So I don't think it's like there's any shame there. It's maybe a bit sucky that then you have to play the team who are probably the best team in the tournament, but I think they can see this as a free hit.
Exactly.
And who knows?
That's what's exciting for them. They've got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And they can just play into the underdog narrative and see what happens. Let's go on to the final quarterfinal, which I think is the most exciting quarterfinal. France-Germany, which is in Basel on Saturday. France obviously topping the group of death, sending Netherlands home. England finished runner-up in that group, and that means they lined up a quarterfinal against the runners-up in Group C, Germany, as Sweden topped that group after beating them 4-1 in that brilliant game. And France will be feeling so confident heading into this. And Germany have to pick themselves up after that 4-1 defeat, which was the first time they'd ever conceded 4 goals at Euros. And they are now going to have to deal also with the fact that their Julia Guin replacement got sent off in that game for a really stupid handball. Jessy, how much do you think that Sweden game would have impacted them?
I think that is a team of players who have played enough big games that they will be able to put the result behind them. I think it's a bit like England and France. Like, I think when you're playing at that level, you can just compartmentalise. I think the issue is more what you've touched on, and we said coming into the tournament that, Germany's defence looks quite light already. Obviously, to then lose Kvin and then Famsa for this game, I'm intrigued as to how that figures out. But I think that could be a bit of a weakness for them, especially because, as we just said about Canada and England, we know that France have a really strong threat on the wings. I think maybe what might play into Germany's hands a little bit is like the way they set their midfield up. Is it feels like they really prioritise that off the ball stuff. Since Nuskun, they're not players you're expecting to spray around all these passes, but they will really disrupt a midfield. And obviously we saw, I think in France's games, that they really like to use the midfield to get going. Even the game against the Netherlands, sort of when Gayoro came on, that's when it felt like stuff started clicking and stuff started working for them. So I think that will play into Germany's hands. I feel like definitely it will be interesting to see Bull and Brands up against that French defence. I think both of them have played really well so far, and there wasn't a huge amount that they could do in the Sweden-Germany game, and I thought actually both of them had really bright moments. Obviously, Brand scores in the game, and Bull created a number of good chances as well. So I think it'll be a fun matchup. I don't think the Sweden game will overly linger in Germany's minds beyond the fact that it is going to make them reshuffle the defence, and that is annoying to have done that for the second time in the tournament.
I think it's less the mentality side, but more that impact on actual personnel now, because they already feel like light in those areas. But what is good that you touched on is they've got a lot of attacking power, and Brands look good. I think Schuler is a reliable goal scorer, and I think they will feel like they can match what France have in terms of attacking output and dangerous opportunities, and that is a positive because you don't want to go into a game thinking where's our creativity going to come from. And I think we saw in the first 10-15 minutes of the Sweden game how dangerous Brand can be and how difficult she is for opposition fullbacks and defences, and she can come inside and she can play her teammates in, and I think that's going to be really important. I think this game could be really edgy in that the first goal could mean quite a lot for either side and how they react. And they both teams have conceded, goals in this tournament. There is no perfect defence in this tournament. And even France went 2-1 down against Netherlands and swung it back. I think their confidence is so visible to see for me that they will feel like if they are losing in any game, they can flip it around, even though mentally they've had tournament issues before.
Yeah, and maybe the mental thing for Germany would come in if they concede first. We spoke about after that Germany-Sweden game, Berger not looking great, for example, and I think she is a player who can lock in sort of randomly, but equally she is someone who, if she starts feeling rattled, you will see errors creep into the game. So yeah, I think if France score first, I could see them sort of maybe running away from it. But I think if Germany can take the lead, I think, they do have so many attacking threats as well. It'll be interesting to see if Dahlmann comes back in over Freigang into the 10. So yeah, it's a fun game. I think personally I would still lean towards France. I agree with you. I just think they feel like they're in really good form. I really like the way they're playing, and they feel more defensively secure. But Germany are Germany, so
you can't count them out.
Yeah, exactly.
And I didn't necessarily think they looked that good in 2022, and they made it to the final. We're very close to beating England in that final.
Yeah. Oh, and that is also we have both. I hadn't twigged that. We have both Euro 2022 semi-finals as quarterfinals.
Yeah.
Because obviously they beat France.
Yeah. It's a great lineup of quarterfinals, guys. We'll leave it there, and we're going to be back tomorrow, straight after England's quarterfinal against Sweden. So who knows what would have gone down in 24 hours. We'll see you then.